Thomas here with Much Props, going to give you another how-to video. Today we are once again working on our Plague Doctor costume, and I got this pretty nifty little goth style hoodie that I think I'm going to use for the costume, but I felt like it needed a jacket, something like a trench coat or a frock jacket, something along those lines. So I'm going to kind of call what I bought a trench coat, even though it may technically be a frock jacket. It's very close and very similar to both of them. So I'm going to take that trench coat, add the spine that we made last time, and rearrange the front of it because it's a costume piece and isn't designed to close in the front, which I want it to close in the front. So I'm going to take my try at adding buttons that I made myself, and hopefully everything will work out. So today we are going to customize a trench coat for my Plague Doctor costume. Let's get to building.
Like I said, technically this is probably considered a frock jacket, but it looks similar to trench coats I was looking at, and there are some aspects of this jacket that make me think it may be in between the two. Other than the materials that they use to make the jackets, I don't really notice much of a difference between them. I'm cutting off the back piece and buttons because they are in the way of my spine connection. Then I just marked where my snap buttons line up and burn holes through the fabric. I bought a snap button kit on Amazon, which I'll link in the description. It comes with some pretty simple instructions, various colored snap buttons, and tools you'll need other than pretty much the hammer. I put a wood block down to take the impact of the hammer. Now I'm working on the front and started by removing the buttons in it. They look like military buttons, which is one of the reasons I thought trench coat, because of the time period that trench coats became readily available was primarily for soldiers in the trenches. After a few smacks on my glass drafting table, I thought, maybe I should hit on something a little more sturdier. Looked online for some buttons to use, and the ones I really liked were like $4 a button. That's a hard pass. I found some silicone skull molds and thought, why not just make my own? So I start with hammering the top of the snap button together. Then I took some thermoplastic from Polyplastics and some gold pellets that they sell and heated it up on my stove in water. Push this material into the mold and insert the snap button at the top section of the skull. I was worried about sagging and the spacing on the straps I'm going to attach it to, so that's the reason I placed it where I did on the button. The rest of the costume is a bright gold and the dye pellets are more like an antique gold, so I decided to spray paint them. I figure if part of the shiny gold rubs off, at least it will be a little bit gold underneath. I bought a bunch of leather remnants from the craft store for real cheap, like 3 pounds for $10. I'm using some of those scraps to then cut some strips for the buttons to snap to and to kind of add some interest to the front of the jacket. I punch a hole on each side using my leather punch and then hammer in some buttons that will snap onto the coat. Here I am burning in some holes to add buttons to the center of the jacket. I didn't want my strips to be what held the coat together because I figured if I didn't get the fitting just right, they would pop off. So this center row of buttons will secure the sides and then the straps will cover over them for a decorative touch. So the black on black didn't give much contrast between the parts, and I need to carry the color scheme of red, gold, and black onto the coat. So I added a thin strip of red leather over the top with some contact cement, and then I glued on some red jewels in the eye sockets of the skulls for an extra bling. Of course, I still need to incorporate some of that EL wire into this part of the costume, so I'm adding some to the sleeves. The top hole and the bottom hole will get a grommet clasped into them to keep the fabric from ripping and allow the EL wire to pass through it. The other holes will get some ball post head buttons to keep the wire on the ridge of my arm and keep it from tangling up. Use some leather on the inside as kind of like a washer to snug fit the ball post head buttons so they'll stay in place. I will try and link all the items I bought for this build on Amazon just in case you want to know what they are or want to buy some for yourself.
And we are finished. Here is the end result. The spine that we made snaps onto the back. It is removable, and so are the buttons that I made. I'll show you a full-length picture here in a second, but these little doodads here will clip onto the forehead of the mask so that it connects, but overall I think it turned out pretty cool. I definitely like the hoodie inside of the trench coat. I'm not so sure about the arms with the weird lacy stuff on it. It's kind of weird, but other than that, I think it's very cool. It is definitely very warm and perfect because it's dropping down into the 30s and 40s here in Texas, and may go out and freak some people out. Why not? Maybe you'll try and make a jacket like this and impress your friends with your ability to add buttons and EL wire and random doggles and doodads on it. So much so that they make a high fashion jacket. Yeah. Maybe you'll get some.
Yay!
And inevitably they're going to ask you, how'd you make that? You can give them one of these, tell them, much props. Peace out.